The colony of Viridia was silent except for the sound of the wind sweeping across broken streets. Buildings that had once been bright with life now lay in ruins. Mara stumbled through the dust, her body aching and her skin marked with cuts and bruises. Her eyes, once full of hope, reflected nothing but pain and loneliness. The people she had once called her own had left her behind. They had branded her barren, a word heavier than any weapon, and had abandoned her to the deserted streets of the city. She dragged herself to the edge of what had once been the central square. The wind carried with it the faint smell of burnt metal and dust. Her legs threatened to give out beneath her. She had survived storms, sickness, and hunger, but her spirit had begun to break. In the past, people had looked at her with pity or disgust. Now, there was no one to look at her at all. She was alone. Mara's mind wandered back to the day they had declared her barren. The council had gathered in the high hall, their faces stern and unyielding. They had spoken as if she were not a person but a problem to be removed. The word barren had cut deeper than any blade. They told her she was useless to the colony, that she had no future, and that her life would only weigh them down. She remembered the fear in her own eyes, the tears that had burned her cheeks. And yet, she had not given up completely. Some small, stubborn part of her refused to let go of life. She looked around the empty square and noticed something unusual. Amid the ruins, a faint glimmer of light reflected from a small piece of metal partially buried in the dirt. Curiosity sparked within her, the first flicker of something other than despair in days. Mara crawled closer and brushed away the dust. It was a piece of human technology, old and abandoned, but still intact. The small device hummed faintly, as if waiting to be discovered. She had heard of humans before, strange travelers from distant worlds who had sometimes visited Viridia. People in the colony had always been wary of them, unsure if they were friends or foes. But now, this small device felt like a message, a sign that not all hope was gone. Mara clutched the device to her chest. She did not know how it worked, but she knew it could help her. She pressed it carefully, and a soft light glowed from its center. A holographic map flickered into life above it. Mara gasped. The map showed a path through the city, guiding her toward a location she did not recognize. Her heart raced. Could it be a human settlement? Or perhaps another abandoned site where she could find help? The thought of other being someone who might see her as more than a failure filled her with cautious hope. She forced herself to rise to her feet. Every step was painful, but the map gave her direction. The streets were littered with debris, and the wind carried a chill that seeped into her bones. Shadows of broken structures stretched across the ground, creating shapes that seemed alive. Mara kept her focus on the light from the device. Each flicker of color from the hologram reminded her that she still had a reason to move forward, that life had not completely abandoned her. Hours passed, and Mara's body began to weaken again. Hunger gnawed at her, and her throat was dry from lack of water. She found a small, half-collapsed building and crawled inside. The interior was dark and cold, but it offered some shelter from the wind. She sank to the ground, hugging her knees to her chest. As she rested, her mind replayed the memories of her past, the ridicule from other colonists, the cold faces of the council, and the emptiness of the streets after they had cast her out. Each memory was a weight, but she refused to let it crush her completely. As night fell, Mara noticed the stars above, peeking through cracks in the broken ceiling. They were brighter than she remembered, twinkling like small beacons of hope. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a small smile. She whispered softly to herself, promising that she would not give up, that she would find a way to survive. The map on the device pulsed gently, as if encouraging her to continue. The next morning, Mara rose before the sun touched the horizon. She felt the cold of the night in her bones, but she refused to stay. She pressed on, guided by the human device and an unfamiliar sense of determination. Along the way, she discovered small things that brought her comfort: a patch of hardy plants growing through the cracks in the concrete, a pool of clean water beneath a collapsed roof. These small signs of life reminded her that even in a place abandoned by many, life still found a way to survive. As she walked, Mara imagined what she might find at the end of the map. Perhaps there would be humans there, or perhaps there would be technology she could use to rebuild some part of her world. She did not know, and that uncertainty was frightening, but it was also thrilling. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of excitement. The thought of discovery, of new possibilities, pushed her forward. By midday, Mara arrived at a large structure partially hidden by rubble. Its design was unlike anything she had seen on Viridia before. The doors were tall and metallic, etched with symbols she could not understand. The device she carried pulsed more brightly, as if confirming that she had reached the place marked on the map. Her pulse quickened. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, her heart beating fast with anticipation and fear. Inside, the air was warmer and cleaner than outside. The walls glowed faintly with human technology she could not recognize. Lights activated as she entered, revealing a small room filled with medical equipment, supplies, and a few other devices. Mara's eyes widened in awe. She could not believe that something like this had survived on Viridia. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and warmth, a strange but comforting scent. She sank to the floor, overwhelmed by relief and exhaustion. For the first time since she had been abandoned, Mara felt that she was not entirely alone. Somewhere beyond these walls, someone had built this place with care, leaving it intact for a reason she did not yet understand. She clutched the device close, feeling a strange sense of connection. Maybe, just maybe, she had found the first step towards something better: a chance to heal, to grow, and to be seen not as barren, but as alive and capable. Mara closed her eyes and whispered to herself, promising to keep moving forward no matter what. The colony of Viridia had cast her aside, but she would not let that define her. Life was still possible, and somewhere beyond the shadows, hope waited for her. Mara had spent the night in the human structure, her body aching but her spirit slightly lighter than before. The room was filled with strange devices she did not fully understand. Panels with glowing lights lined the walls, and a soft hum filled the air, a sound unlike anything in the empty streets outside. She explored carefully, touching buttons and screens, but nothing seemed to react except the small device that had guided her here. She hoped it meant someone had left this place for a reason. As Mara moved further into the structure, she noticed a door at the far end of the room. It was slightly ajar, and through the gap, she could see a figure moving. Her heart skipped a beat. She had expected the building to be empty. She crouched behind a piece of equipment, unsure whether this newcomer was friend or foe. The figure stepped into the light. It was a human. He was tall and lean, with short hair and kind eyes. He wore a uniform that seemed to be made for exploration, with pockets filled with tools. Mara froze, unsure if she should run or hide. Humans were rare visitors to Viridia, and most stories painted them as dangerous outsiders. The human noticed her immediately. He did not raise a weapon or shout. Instead, he raised his hand slightly, a gesture Mara did not recognize, but which seemed peaceful. He spoke in a soft voice, and though she could not understand the words at first, the tone was calm and friendly. Mara slowly stepped out from behind the equipment, keeping her distance. Her body was still weak, and fear made her movements hesitant. The human knelt slightly, trying to appear less threatening. "Hello," he said again, in clearer tones. "I am Liam. I mean no harm." Mara studied him carefully. His eyes were steady, and his hands relaxed. Something in his calm demeanor made her want to believe him. After a long pause, she spoke. Her voice was weak, almost a whisper. "Why are you here?" Liam smiled gently. "I am here to help. I travel to colonies that are struggling. I want to see if I can make life better. Mara did not understand everything he said, but she caught the meaning. Help. Someone had come not to harm her, but to offer assistance. Her curiosity overcame her fear. She stepped closer. Can you help me? She asked. Her voice trembled. I am alone. Liam nodded. Yes. You are not alone anymore. I will help you. He set down a small bag he had been carrying. From it, he pulled out medical tools and supplies. Mara watched him with wide eyes. She had never received care like this before. The humans had technology that could heal, tools that could mend broken bodies and help those in need. Gently, Liam helped Mara lie down on a soft mat he had unrolled. He examined her injuries carefully, speaking to her in soft tones. Even though she did not fully understand, his presence was calming. Mara felt the tension in her body slowly ease. Liam cleaned her cuts, bandaged her wounds, and gave her water to drink. She realized she had not eaten or drunk properly in days. While he worked, Liam asked questions, not in a harsh or judgmental way, but in a way that invited her to speak if she wished. Mara hesitated at first. She had been abandoned, labeled useless, and treated as if her life had no value. Talking to someone now felt risky. But Liam's calm presence encouraged her. She began to tell him small pieces of her story, the attacks she had survived, the loneliness, the fear, and the moment her own people had branded her barren. Liam listened without interruption. He did not flinch or recoil at the word barren. Instead, he nodded, acknowledging her pain without judgment. That was not fair, he said simply. Your life has value, and your body does not define you. You are capable of many things. Mara had never heard words like these directed at her. They were simple, but powerful. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen not as a problem, but as a person. The day passed slowly. Liam tended to her wounds and offered small portions of food from his supplies. He showed her how to use simple tools that could help her survive in the abandoned colony. Mara watched carefully, absorbing each lesson. Despite her weakness, she felt a strange energy returning. She realized that survival might be possible if she accepted help. By evening, Mara felt strong enough to sit up. She explored the room more, guided by Liam's instructions. He showed her how to operate the lighting and the heating systems. He explained that the building had been left as a safe place for travelers. Mara felt a growing respect for the humans who had built this place. It had survived through years of neglect and decay, a small testament to their ingenuity and foresight. As night fell, Liam prepared a small area for Mara to sleep. He did not force her to rest, but encouraged her to take care of her body. Mara lay down on the mat, her body sore but her mind restless. She watched Liam move about the room, adjusting devices, checking the supplies. Despite being exhausted, she felt a small spark of curiosity. She wanted to learn more about these humans and their technology. Perhaps they were not just visitors, they could be teachers, allies, and a source of hope. Mara closed her eyes for a short while, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed the day's events. She had survived because of a stranger. Someone from another world had chosen to help her without expecting anything in return. It was a concept foreign to her people, who valued usefulness over kindness. She felt a quiet determination growing within her. If she could learn from this human, perhaps she could find a way to reclaim her life and prove her worth, not for her people, but for herself. The next morning, Mara awoke before Liam. She watched him move through the room, checking the systems and adjusting the devices. His movements were confident and careful. He noticed her watching and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "You rested well?" Mara nodded. "A little," she admitted. "I am still weak." Liam handed her a small device that could monitor her health. "This will help us track your recovery," he explained. You are stronger than you think, but we must be careful. Mara took it in her hands, feeling the weight of responsibility and the potential for growth. She realized that healing was not just physical, it was about learning, about understanding herself, and about discovering that she could still matter in the universe. Together, they began to explore the building more thoroughly. Liam showed her storage rooms filled with food and medical supplies. He explained how the technology worked in simple terms. Mara listened attentively, asking questions when she did not understand. Each answer gave her a sense of empowerment. She realized that knowledge, combined with determination, could make her strong in ways her people had never allowed. By the end of the day, Mara had learned basic survival skills using the human tools and devices. She had healed slightly, and more importantly, she had begun to feel a sense of hope she had thought lost forever. Liam had shown her that someone could care without judgment, and that even in a harsh and lonely world, life could be nurtured and rebuilt. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows over the ruined city, Mara and Liam sat together in the soft glow of the building's lights. Mara felt a quiet gratitude. She had been abandoned, labeled barren, and left to die. Yet now, she was alive, and someone had planted hope in her heart. For the first time in years, she dared to believe that she could survive, that she could grow, and that her life could have meaning beyond the cruel judgments of others. Mara woke to the soft hum of the building's lights. The air was warmer than the outside world, and for the first time in many days, she felt comfortable enough to stretch her sore limbs. The wounds that had once burned with pain were healing, and the small device Liam had given her indicated that her body was regaining strength. But more than the physical recovery, Mara noticed something new inside her, a small spark of confidence that had been missing for so long. Liam was already moving through the room, checking equipment and organizing supplies. When he saw Mara awake, he smiled. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and steady. "How do you feel today?" Mara paused, thinking carefully. "Better," she said slowly. "Stronger than yesterday." Liam nodded. "That is good. Today, we will start learning more. Healing the body is important, but healing the mind is just as important. You will see that you are capable of more than you think." Mara listened, curiosity and hope mingling in her chest. She had never been encouraged to grow in this way. In her colony, she had only ever been told she was weak, useless, and barren. The idea that she could learn and improve was both strange and exciting. They spent the morning exploring the building. Liam showed Mara rooms filled with tools, medical supplies, and old records of human projects. Each object fascinated her. Some were simple, like containers that purified water or lights that lasted for years without replacement. Others were more complex, like devices that could measure vital signs or repair small injuries. Mara tried to use each one, learning under Liam's patient guidance. She stumbled at first, fumbling with buttons and levers, but Liam never criticized her. Instead, he encouraged her to try again, explaining each step in simple words until she understood. By midday, Mara's body was tired but her mind was active. She sat at a console, studying a holographic map of the surrounding city. Liam had shown her how to access information about the colony, including areas where food could still be found and zones that were dangerous. Mara realized that knowledge was a kind of power. Even in a place abandoned by her people, she could navigate, survive, and maybe even help others who had been left behind. As they worked, Mara began to talk more about her life before she was abandoned. She told Liam about her family, about her childhood in the colony, and the day she was declared barren. Liam listened carefully, never interrupting or judging. When she finished, he said, "What they said was cruel, and it does not define who you are. Your worth is not measured by what others think, but by what you do and how you live your life." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Her people had only used words to hurt, to make her feel small. But Liam's words were different. They gave her strength. For the first time, she began to believe that she could be more than what others had labeled her. After lunch, they worked on a small garden project. Liam had brought seeds from a human settlement, plants that could survive in harsh conditions. Together, they planted them in containers and arranged them near the building's light sources. Mara learned how to water them carefully and monitor their growth. Watching the tiny sprouts push through the soil gave her a strange sense of joy. Life was fragile but persistent, and somehow that reminded her of herself. Mara spoke softly as she tended the plants. "I did not think I could grow anything," she said. "I thought my life would end here, forgotten and useless." Liam knelt beside her. "Life always finds a way. Even when things seem hopeless, there is a chance for growth. You are not useless, Mara. You are full of potential." As the day went on, Mara began to feel stronger in her movements and steadier in her thoughts. Liam introduced her to other aspects of human technology, simple machines that could filter water, generate light, or store food. Each new skill she learned made her more confident. She realized that knowledge, patience, and determination could give her a kind of power that her colony had never allowed her to have. By evening, the soft lights of the building reflected off the young plants they had nurtured. Mara sat on the floor beside Liam, watching the small green leaves sway slightly in the artificial breeze. "I never thought life could be like this," she admitted. "I always thought I was weak. I always thought I was alone." Liam smiled. "You were never truly alone. You just needed the right guidance and care. Now you are learning, growing, and discovering that your life matters. You have value, not because of what others said about you, but because of who you are and what you can do." Mara thought about the barren streets she had wandered, the emptiness of the colony, and the pain she had carried for so long. She realized that those days were not the end of her story. They had been a beginning, a harsh start that made her appreciate the hope she now felt. She had survived because she had refused to give up completely, and now she was learning that survival was not enough. She could thrive. She could help others. She could change her future. That night, Mara lay on her mat, thinking about the day's lessons. She felt a sense of pride she had never experienced before. She had learned, grown, and discovered small successes that reminded her of her strength. For the first time in years, she dared to dream of a life beyond the shadows of abandonment. The next morning, Mara and Liam began planning for a larger project. They would explore the surrounding ruins of the colony to find places where human technology or resources could be recovered. Mara's confidence had grown enough that she wanted to see more of the city, to reclaim small parts of it, and to test the skills she had learned. Liam supported her, guiding her carefully but letting her make decisions. As they stepped outside, the bright light of the alien sun reflected off the ruins. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth on her face. The streets no longer seemed empty and hopeless. Each cracked wall, each broken building, was a challenge waiting to be met, an opportunity to prove that life could endure. She felt a determination rising inside her that she had not felt since before she was cast out. Walking through the city with Liam at her side, Mara realized that recovery was not just about healing her body. It was about learning, discovering, and believing in herself. Each small step, each new skill, and each tiny success became a building block for her confidence. She was no longer the abandoned, barren girl her people had left behind. She was growing, thriving, and finding hope in ways she had never imagined. By the end of the day, Mara had explored several new sections of the colony. She had located areas where clean water still pooled, places where edible plants could be found, and structures that could be repurposed with human tools. Liam praised her progress, but more importantly, Mara praised herself. She realized that her worth was no longer defined by her past or by the cruel labels of her people. She was capable, strong, and full of potential. As night fell, Mara looked at the small plants they had nurtured, the tools they had organized, and the paths they had mapped through the city. A quiet smile appeared on her face. Hope was no longer a fragile idea. It was growing inside her, just like the tiny green leaves reaching for the light. With Liam's guidance, she had discovered that her life could have meaning, purpose, and even joy. Mara closed her eyes and whispered to herself. I will grow. I will survive. I will find my place. For the first time in a long time, the future seemed full of possibility, and she knew that she was ready to face it. The days passed, and Mara's strength grew. She moved more confidently through the ruined colony, exploring areas that once seemed too dangerous. Liam stayed close, guiding her, teaching her how to use tools, and showing her ways to gather resources safely. Mara had begun to understand the human's approach to survival. It was not just about brute strength, it was about knowledge, patience, and creativity. One morning, as Mara and Liam were repairing a small water pump in the city's central square, shadows appeared at the edges of the streets. Mara froze. The figures approached steadily, their movements deliberate and careful. As they drew closer, she recognized the uniforms and insignias of the colony's council guards. Her heart sank. News of her survival must have reached them. The leader of the group stepped forward, an older alien named Wreath. His face was stern, his eyes cold. Mara, he said, his voice low but commanding. You were not meant to survive. You were declared barren and left to die. Why are you here? Mara's pulse quickened. She wanted to flee, but she could feel Liam's steady presence behind her. He did not speak, but he did not retreat either. Mara straightened, drawing on the strength she had built in recent days. I am here, she said, her voice calm but firm, because I am alive. I will survive. And I will help this colony, in any way I can. Rita's eyes narrowed. You have no place here. You are a disgrace to our people. Leave before we take action. Mara shook her head. I will not leave. I am not the same person I was before. You called me Barren, but that does not define me. I can contribute. I can make this place better. You cannot take that from me. The council guards whispered among themselves, some unsure, others angry. Mara could feel the tension building. Liam stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. She is right. You cannot judge someone's worth based on what they cannot do. Mara has survived. She has learned. She has helped restore parts of the colony already. That is proof of her value. The council guards turned toward him, shocked. It was rare for a human to speak so directly to the elders, and some felt a mixture of anger and awe. Rita's voice was sharp. You speak of value, human, but you do not understand our ways. This is not your colony to teach. Mara is a failure in our eyes. She is not fit to contribute. Mara felt a wave of anger but forced herself to remain calm. She could not let them intimidate her. She had spent too long believing she was worthless. I am more than your judgments, Mara said. I am strong, I am learning, and I am alive. I will help those who need it. You may not understand now, but one day, you will see that life is measured by action, courage, and hope, not by labels. The words rang out over the quiet streets, carried by the wind. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Some of the younger guards shifted uneasily. They had grown up seeing the council's harsh rules enforced without question, but Mara's words made them pause. There was a spark of doubt in their eyes, a question they had not dared to ask before. Could it be possible that the council's judgments were wrong? Could someone cast out as worthless actually have value? Rita's face darkened. You think your words and the presence of a human will change anything? This colony will not forget its traditions. Mara, you are an outcast. Return to the ruins or face consequences. Mara met his gaze steadily. I will not return. I will show you what I can do. I will prove that life can flourish even in places where hope seems lost. The tension remained thick, but the council guards began to withdraw. Some muttered warnings, but others exchanged glances that suggested curiosity. Mara could feel the shift in the air. The resistance had not ended, but cracks were appearing. People who had once followed tradition without question were beginning to see a different path, a possibility that survival and growth were stronger than fear and prejudice. After the council guards left, Mara turned to Liam. "They will not accept this easily," she said quietly. "They may try to stop me again." Liam nodded. "Change is never easy. The important thing is that you are ready. You have the skills, the knowledge, and the courage to continue. And you are not alone." Mara smiled faintly. "I feel stronger with you here. You help me believe in myself when I cannot." Together, they returned to the building where Mara had been recovering. She reviewed her small projects, the water pump they had repaired, the garden they had begun, and the tools they had organized. Each one represented progress, proof that she could make a difference. Mara realized that her life was no longer just about surviving, it was about creating, building, and proving her worth through action. Over the next several days, Mara and Liam worked tirelessly. They repaired sections of the colony's infrastructure that had been abandoned, restored water supplies, and cultivated new plants that could provide food. Mara began to take pride in her accomplishments. Each small success strengthened her confidence and demonstrated to the colony that she was more than the label they had given her. Mara also began to interact cautiously with other colonists. At first, they avoided her, whispering in fear or suspicion. But as they saw her helping to repair water channels, tending plants, and demonstrating her knowledge of human tools, attitudes began to change. Some colonists started to approach her for guidance. Mara realized that her actions could speak louder than words. She could lead by example, and slowly, the community began to respond. One evening, Mara stood on a small hill overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the ruins. She could see the water flowing in repaired channels, plants beginning to thrive, and a few colonists working alongside her. It was not perfect, and there were still those who doubted her, but progress was visible. Mara felt a quiet sense of pride. She had survived the judgment of her people, learned from Liam, and begun to build something meaningful from the ruins. Liam joined her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You see what you have done?" he asked. "Even the smallest actions can change the world around you." Mara nodded. "I understand now. My life does not belong to the council or to anyone else. It belongs to me. And I will use it to help others, to grow, and to build hope." As night fell, Mara felt a sense of peace. The streets of the colony were no longer silent. Life was returning, slowly but surely. The resistance of her people was still present, but it was no longer the only voice she heard. Mara knew that challenges would continue, that not everyone would accept her, and that the path ahead would be difficult. But she also knew that she was no longer powerless. She had Liam's guidance, her own growing strength, and a vision for a future where she could thrive. Mara closed her eyes, listening to the sounds of the colony at night, the trickle of water, the faint rustle of wind through the buildings, the quiet murmur of colonists who were beginning to notice her efforts. She realized that she was no longer the abandoned, frightened girl who had wandered the streets. She was a survivor, a learner, and a growing force for hope in a world that had once rejected her. With determination in her heart, Mara whispered to herself, "I will continue. I will help this colony. I will grow stronger, and I will prove that life can thrive even in the darkest places." The words were quiet but powerful, a promise she intended to keep. The colony of Viridia was slowly waking to change. Mara had grown more confident in her work and in herself. With Liam's guidance, she had repaired water pumps, cultivated plants, and restored small sections of the abandoned city. The streets were still broken and quiet, but life was beginning to return in subtle ways. Mara felt the stirrings of hope in herself and in the colony. One morning, Liam suggested they explore a section of the city that had been untouched for years. "There may be resources there," he said. "Or maybe something more." Mara felt a thrill of curiosity. They packed their supplies and moved cautiously through narrow streets, stepping over rubble and debris. Mara's body was strong now, her movements steady, and her mind alert. She had grown accustomed to Liam's presence, trusting his judgment while learning to trust her own instincts. As they approached a large building partially covered in vines, Mara noticed a faint glow inside. The structure appeared ancient, its walls scarred by time and neglect. The air around it felt warmer, almost alive. Mara hesitated at the entrance. "Do you think it is safe?" she asked quietly. Liam smiled. "We will find out together." Inside, the building was filled with a strange energy. Light filtered through cracks in the walls, illuminating small patches of green that had taken root over time. Mara's eyes widened. Among the rubble, she saw plants growing in patterns she had never seen. Their leaves shimmered with vibrant colors, and their stems were strong and resilient. It was unlike any plant she had encountered in Viridia or from Liam's seeds. "This is incredible," Mara whispered. She stepped closer, careful not to disturb the delicate growth. Liam crouched beside her, scanning the area with a small device. "These plants are adaptive," he said. "They can survive in harsh conditions, grow quickly, and reproduce without much care. This could be very useful for the colony." Mara's heart leapt. She realized that this discovery was more than a sign of life. It was proof that growth and renewal were possible even in places that seemed hopeless. Over the next hours, Mara and Liam carefully collected samples and studied the plants. They learned that the species could thrive in the barren soil of the city, resist disease, and provide nourishment if cultivated properly. Mara's mind raced with possibilities. With these plants, she could help feed the colony, restore areas once abandoned, and show the people that life could flourish even where it had once seemed impossible. As they worked, Mara felt a deep sense of purpose. The discovery was not just about survival, it was about hope. She imagined fields of these plants spreading through the city, green and alive, transforming the ruins into a place of growth. She could see colonists tending the plants, learning to nurture them, and in turn, nurturing themselves. For the first time, Mara felt that she could truly make a difference. When they returned to their building, Mara carefully planted some of the samples in containers Liam had prepared. She monitored their growth daily, learning how to water them, how to provide light, and how to protect them from the harsh elements outside. The plants grew quickly, stronger and taller than expected. Their vitality mirrored Mara's own recovery and growing confidence. Each new leaf was a reminder that life could thrive even after hardship. Mara began to share her work with other colonists cautiously. At first, they were skeptical. They had long believed that life could not survive in the broken city, and the idea of new growth seemed impossible. But Mara demonstrated the plant's resilience and the small improvements they had already made. Slowly, curiosity replaced doubt. Colonists began to assist, learning how to care for the plants and noticing how their efforts brought results. One day, a group of young colonists approached Mara while she tended the plants. "We saw the garden growing," one said. "Can you teach us?" Mara smiled. "Of course. These plants can survive if we care for them. We can learn together." Liam watched nearby, proud of the way Mara had begun to lead, not by force, but through knowledge and example. Mara realized that she was no longer just learning from him. She was teaching, guiding, and inspiring others. The days became filled with activity and purpose. Mara and Liam explored more of the ruins, finding areas where the adaptive plants could be introduced. They repaired small irrigation channels and cleared spaces for new growth. The colony began to see the first real signs of renewal. Water flowed where it had once stagnated, plants thrived where only dust had remained, and people who had felt powerless began to participate. Mara understood that her discovery was more than scientific. It was a symbol of life, resilience, and hope for everyone. One evening, Mara stood on a small hill overlooking the city. The adaptive plants glowed faintly in the soft light of the setting sun. She could see colonists working together, sharing knowledge, and learning to nurture life in the ruins. The air felt alive, filled with the quiet hum of growth and possibility. Mara realized that this moment was different from anything she had experienced before. She was no longer defined by her past or by the label of Barren. She was part of a living, growing community. Liam approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did this, Mara," he said quietly. "Not me. You discovered the plants, nurtured them, and inspired others to join you. This is your achievement." Mara felt a surge of pride and gratitude. She had once believed that her life was meaningless, that she had nothing to offer. Now, she saw that her actions could change the world around her. Mara nodded, her eyes on the thriving plants below. "I never thought I could make a difference," she said softly. "But now I see that even small efforts can create hope. We can grow life where there was only emptiness before." Liam smiled. "That is the human way," he said. "We believe in possibility. But you, Mara, have shown that hope can take root anywhere, even in the hardest conditions." The next days were filled with careful planning. Mara and Liam mapped areas for new growth, prepared more containers for plants, and organized small groups of colonists to help. Each new sprout was a reminder of what could be achieved with patience, knowledge, and care. Mara felt stronger than ever. Her body had healed, her mind was sharp, and her spirit was alive with purpose. One morning, while checking on the plants, Mara noticed a small group of elders watching from a distance. They had remained skeptical of her efforts, but the thriving greenery and the activity of the colonists could not be ignored. Mara felt a mix of apprehension and determination. She knew they would challenge her, but she also knew that her work spoke louder than their doubts. Mara took a deep breath, touching the leaves of the adaptive plants gently. She felt a connection to life that she had not experienced before. These plants had survived neglect, thrived in harsh conditions, and offered nourishment and hope. They were like her once abandoned, now growing stronger and full of potential. Mara realized that her journey was not just about survival. It was about creating new life, inspiring others, and showing that even the most hopeless places could bloom again. As the sun set, Mara looked at the green patches spreading through the ruins. She knew that the work was only beginning, but she also knew that the discovery of the adaptive plants had changed everything. Hope was no longer a fragile idea. It was alive, growing, and reaching toward the future. Mara smiled, feeling a quiet determination. She would continue to nurture life, rebuild the colony, and prove that even in the darkest places, growth and hope were possible. The colony of Viridia had changed since Mara had begun her work. Water flowed in repaired channels, adaptive plants were growing in once barren spaces, and a few colonists had started helping her with the projects. But not everyone welcomed the changes. The council elders remained wary, their eyes filled with suspicion and disapproval. Mara knew that sooner or later, she would have to face them again. One morning, as Mara and Liam tended to the thriving plants near the city center, a group of council guards appeared. Their presence made the colonists step back, their expressions fearful. Mara straightened, feeling the strength she had gained over the past weeks. She had survived abandonment, learned to heal and grow, and proven her worth through action. She would not cower now. The leader of the group, Elder Wreath, spoke first. "Mara, you continue to defy the council. You were declared barren, yet you persist in your work. You bring change without permission. This cannot continue. Mara met his gaze steadily. I am not defying anyone. I am helping the colony survive. I am proving that life can flourish even where it was thought impossible. This is not rebellion, it is hope. Retha's face hardened. Hope cannot replace tradition. You ignore the rules that guide our people. Your actions undermine the authority of the council. Mara shook her head. The council's authority should protect life, not punish it. I have been abandoned, labeled worthless, but I am still alive. I can contribute. These plants, the water we restored, the progress of the colony, they show that life is stronger than fear. A murmur ran through the gathered guards and colonists. Some looked at Mara with curiosity, others with unease. The younger members of the colony, those who had watched her work and seen the results, felt inspired by her courage. Mara knew that her words alone were not enough, she needed to show them what could be achieved through action. Liam stepped forward, standing beside Mara. The work Mara has done is undeniable, he said firmly. She has saved lives, restored resources, and brought hope to a place that was empty. Authority is important, but it should not blind us to the value of life and the power of knowledge. Mara's actions strengthen the colony, not weaken it. Reith glared at Liam. You are a human. You cannot dictate our ways. This is not your colony to guide. Liam's voice remained steady. I am not dictating. I am pointing out the truth. Mara's life and efforts matter. The colony is better because of what she has done. That is not rebellion, it is proof that survival and growth are possible when people work together. For a moment, silence fell over the city center. Mara could feel the tension in the air, but she also sensed a shift. The younger colonists who had helped with the water channels and the plants began to step forward, showing that Mara was not alone. They spoke quietly among themselves, but their presence was clear, they supported her efforts. Mara raised her voice, speaking to the elders and the colonists. I know my life has been judged harshly. I was labeled barren and left to die. But I survived. I learned. I grew. I helped others, not because I had to, but because I could. Life is stronger than fear, knowledge is stronger than prejudice, and hope is stronger than judgment. If we work together, this colony can thrive. We do not need to cling to old rules that punish rather than protect. We need to act, to build, and to grow. The elders whispered among themselves, clearly unsettled. Mara could see doubt flickering in their eyes. Some of the younger guards and colonists nodded quietly, inspired by her courage and the evidence of her work. Mara knew that words alone were not enough to change tradition, but her actions had begun to speak for themselves. Retha's face darkened with anger. You think a few plants and repaired water channels can undo the centuries of rules that guide our people? You are naive, Mara. The council cannot allow this to continue. Leave, or face punishment. Mara met his gaze firmly. I will not leave. Life cannot be ignored. I will continue to help this colony. If that is punishment in your eyes, then so be it. But I will not abandon those who need help, and I will not abandon hope. The tension was broken by a small voice from the crowd. One of the younger colonists, a girl named Lena, stepped forward. We see what Mara has done, she said. The water flows again. The plants grow. We want to help. We want to learn. We do not want fear to rule us. We want hope. Others began to nod, their voices joining Lena's. The whispers grew louder, until a quiet chorus of agreement filled the air. Retha's eyes widened with disbelief. The council had always ruled with unquestioned authority, but now a movement was forming before him. Mara felt a surge of determination. She realized that this was the moment she had been building toward. Her efforts, combined with Liam's guidance and the willingness of the younger colonists, could create real change. She spoke again, her voice steady and strong. The colony does not belong to fear. It belongs to all of us who live here, who work, learn, and grow. We can survive, and we can thrive, if we have the courage to act and the wisdom to learn from each other. Tradition has value, but it should not blind us to the truth. Life is precious, and hope is powerful. For a long moment, silence returned. Mara could feel every heartbeat in the city center, the tension and anticipation. Then, slowly, some of the elders began to step back. They were still cautious, but the younger colonists had taken a stand. Mara realized that change was possible, even if it came slowly. Reith finally spoke, his voice quieter, less certain. Perhaps, there is merit in your words. We will watch, but the council will not forget its rules. Mara nodded. I do not ask for forgiveness or permission. I ask only for understanding, and for a chance to show that life can grow where it was thought impossible. That is all I need. The council guards withdrew, leaving Mara and Liam standing among the thriving plants and repaired channels. The younger colonists gathered around them, eager to continue the work. Mara felt a sense of pride and purpose she had never known before. Her journey was far from over, but she had faced the council, spoken her truth, and inspired others to see hope where there had once been fear. Liam placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it, Mara. You stood for what is right. You have shown the colony what is possible when courage, knowledge, and hope come together. Mara smiled. This is only the beginning. The council may resist, but life will continue to grow. We will continue to help this colony. And maybe, in time, even those who doubt will see that hope is stronger than fear. That evening, Mara stood among the glowing plants, watching the colonists work together. She felt a quiet satisfaction and a renewed determination. The battle for acceptance was not over, but the first victory had been won. Life was returning to the colony, and with it, the understanding that even those once abandoned could lead, inspire, and create a better future. Mara whispered to herself, her voice steady and full of resolve. I will continue. I will grow. I will show that life and hope can thrive even in the darkest places. The plants swayed gently in the evening breeze, their leaves reflecting the light of the setting sun. Mara realized that they were not just symbols of growth for the colony, they were symbols of her own journey, a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of hope. The colony of Viridia had begun to awaken. Water channels flowed steadily through the streets, plants of every kind swayed in gentle light, and colonists moved with purpose and confidence. Mara walked among them, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She had once been abandoned, branded barren, and left to die. Now, she was part of the life that thrived here. Morning light filtered through the broken windows of the building where she had first been rescued. Liam stood nearby, organizing supplies for the day's work. Mara watched the younger colonists tending the plants and repairing structures. She realized that the small spark of hope she had planted weeks ago had grown into something far greater, a community willing to work together, to rebuild, and to believe in possibilities beyond fear. Today, we explore the northern sector, Liam said, his voice calm but excited. There may be more resources, and perhaps more areas we can restore. Mara nodded. Her confidence had grown steadily, and she no longer hesitated at challenges. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they moved through the city, Mara noticed how different everything felt. The streets were no longer empty or silent. The water sparkled in channels they had repaired, and greenery now filled spaces that had once been gray and lifeless. Colonists greeted Mara as she passed, offering smiles and quiet words of encouragement. She had never felt such belonging in her life. The northern sector was a place Mara had once feared. Buildings leaned precariously, walls were cracked, and the ground was littered with rubble. She remembered how abandoned it had seemed, a place where life could not survive. But now, with Liam by her side and her own determination guiding her, Mara saw potential everywhere. She imagined small gardens in the open courtyards, repaired water systems, and pathways where colonists could safely move. As they explored, Mara and Liam discovered an underground chamber. Inside, the air was cool, and small patches of light filtered through cracks in the ceiling. To Mara's surprise, tiny roots had already begun to spread through the soil, reaching toward the faint light. She knelt and examined the plants carefully. They were strong, resilient, and capable of growing in harsh conditions. Mara realized that even in spaces long forgotten, life could find a way. These plants survived on their own, Mara said quietly. Even without care, they found a way to grow. Liam nodded. It shows that life is persistent. If nurtured, it can flourish anywhere. This is exactly what we have been proving to the colony. Mara felt a surge of determination. She would take these plants to the surface, show them to the colonists, and expand the areas of growth. The chamber could become a new center of hope. Over the following days, Mara and Liam worked tirelessly. Colonists joined them willingly, inspired by the success of the northern sector. Water systems were repaired, containers of soil were brought to the surface, and plants from the chamber were transplanted into open areas. Slowly, the gray, barren streets transformed into vibrant spaces full of life. Mara watched with satisfaction as the colony blossomed before her eyes. One afternoon, Mara returned to the city center to find a group of council elders waiting. Elder Reith stepped forward, his expression serious but less rigid than before. Mara tensed, unsure what to expect. "Mara," Reith said, his voice softer than she had heard in weeks. "We have watched your efforts. The colony is changing. We see water flowing, plants growing, and colonists working together. You have shown courage, wisdom, and strength. Perhaps our judgment was too harsh." Mara met his gaze steadily. "I only wanted to help," she said. "I never sought power or recognition. I wanted life to return to this colony. To survive is not enough. We can thrive if we work together and embrace hope." Reith nodded slowly. "We will reconsider our traditions. We must learn to adapt, as you have shown us. The council will support the restoration of the colony and the guidance you provide." Mara felt a warmth spread through her chest. Change had come, not through rebellion or force, but through action, knowledge, and courage. Over the next weeks, Mara led the colony with Liam's guidance. The plants from the northern chamber flourished in the open air, creating gardens and green pathways. Water systems extended into previously dry zones, and colonists learned to care for the environment and each other. The younger generation looked to Mara as a symbol of resilience and hope, inspired by her journey from abandonment to leadership. Mara also began teaching the colonists about the adaptive plants, showing them how to cultivate, protect, and expand them. Each small success reinforced the belief that life could thrive even in the harshest conditions. Mara's experience had taught her that survival was only the first step. Growth, learning, and hope were what allowed a community to endure and flourish. One evening, Mara stood on a hill overlooking the restored colony. Light from repaired channels reflected in the water, and greenery covered spaces that had once been barren. Colonists worked together, repairing buildings, planting new gardens, and sharing knowledge. The air was filled with quiet activity, the hum of life returning to Viridia. Mara realized that this moment was the culmination of everything she had endured and learned. Liam joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Look at what you have done, Mara," he said. "You were left for dead, but you refused to give up. You have restored hope to this colony and shown that life is stronger than fear. You have made a difference that will last for generations." Mara smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the thriving colony. "I could not have done it alone," she said. "You taught me, guided me, and believed in me. But it is the colony that has truly grown. The people have chosen hope over fear, life over despair." Mara's gaze swept over the streets below. Children ran along safe paths, plants thrived in every open space, and colonists spoke and worked together. The city had been transformed from a place of death and abandonment into a living, vibrant community. Mara felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. Her journey had begun with despair, but it had led to growth, hope, and renewal. That night, Mara walked through the gardens she had helped cultivate. The adaptive plants glowed faintly in the soft light, their leaves reaching toward the sky. She knelt and touched them gently, feeling their strength and resilience. They were a reminder of her own journey from being abandoned and branded barren to becoming a leader and a symbol of hope. Mara whispered softly to herself, "Life will continue. Hope will grow. We can thrive even in the darkest places." She realized that her story was no longer just her own. It belonged to the colony, to the people she had helped inspire, and to the generations that would follow. Her survival had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and the unyielding power of hope. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Mara and Liam stood together on the hilltop. The colony below glimmered with light and life. Mara felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced judgment, abandonment, and despair, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and capable of leading others. She had discovered that even in a harsh and broken world, life could flourish, hope could endure, and humanity through courage, knowledge, and care could create miracles. The colony of Viridia was alive again, and Mara's journey had come full circle. She was no longer the abandoned girl, branded barren by her people. She was a leader, a nurturer of life, and a beacon of hope. She had proven that even in the most desolate places, growth and renewal were possible, and that a single life, given care and guidance, could change the destiny of an entire community. Mara smiled, looking at the thriving plants, the flowing water, and the busy colonists. She felt a quiet joy in knowing that her life, once judged worthless, had become a force for life and hope. The future of Viridia was bright, and she knew that as long as courage, knowledge, and determination guided them, the colony would continue to grow and flourish. Mara turned to Liam. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Liam nodded, smiling. "You did this, Mara. I only helped you see what was possible. You planted the hope, and you let it grow." Mara looked at the city below, her heart full. Life had returned. Hope had taken root. And she knew that nothing could stop it now.